Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've ever spent any time around a newborn, you know that trying to figure out what they want can honestly feel like trying to solve a giant puzzle with half the pieces missing. But what if I told you there's actually a natural, totally predictable clock to their needs? Today, we're decoding your baby's hunger signs long before that dreaded crying meltdown even begins. We're going to break down the exact cues you need to watch for so you can stay one step ahead. Okay, here's our structured roadmap for today. We'll be looking at spotting early hunger signs, the escalation into active cues, hitting the red zone with late cues, knowing when baby is actually full, and lastly, hunger versus other needs. Let's jump right in.
To really get this, we kind of need to completely reframe how we think about a baby's communication. We're going to track this natural progression like a traffic light system, moving from point 1, those calm early cues, into point 2, the more insistent active cues, and then finally hitting point 3, the distressed late cues. Thinking about it this way fundamentally shifts our mindset. It makes us realize that crying is actually the very last sign of hunger on this timeline, not the first.
So, Section 1, Spotting Early Hunger Signs. This is our green light phase, and frankly, the absolute best time to feed because the baby is still calm and cooperative. What's super interesting here is just how incredibly subtle these early physical signs actually are. I mean, it's not about noise at all. It's completely about movement. A baby simply waking up or becoming a bit more alert, that is your very first clue. Then you might notice them opening and closing their mouth, or maybe smacking and licking their lips, and definitely pay close attention to their hands. Bringing those little fists up to their mouth or sucking on their fingers are massive green lights saying, hey, I'm getting hungry, but I'm still pretty relaxed about it. A major early indicator to watch for alongside those little movements is this fascinating biological response called the rooting reflex. This is where they turn their head from side to side, actively searching for a nipple. They're instinctively scanning their environment for food. It's literally a built-in survival mechanism. So spotting that side-to-side head turn is your golden opportunity to start a really calm, easy feeding session. Moving on to Section 2, the escalation or active cues. If we happen to miss those early, subtle signs, we enter the yellow light phase, and this perfectly illustrates how a baby's frustration builds physically when that green light window starts to close. You'll see a really clear transition from a calm baby to a noticeably insistent one. They'll start squirming or wriggling around, the silence breaks, and you get fussing or short cries. Not a full meltdown just yet, but they are definitely voicing some complaints. They'll also start moving their arms and legs vigorously and just become increasingly restless. Basically, the baby is escalating their message, letting you know the clock is ticking. Section 3, the red zone, late cues. If that clock keeps ticking past the yellow phase, we inevitably hit the red light zone, meaning the baby is now in full distress. The contrast here is stark. We move from that active squirming and general restlessness right into late hunger, which is characterized by loud, persistent crying. You're probably going to see a bright red face and a very telling physical sign, arching their back. They are incredibly upset and will have immense difficulty settling down. At this point, the window for an easy, peaceful feed is completely closed. Now, when a baby reaches this highly distressed red stage, parent instinct usually screams to force the feed immediately just to stop the crying. But actually, scratch that. The most crucial advice here is to stop and soothe. At this stage, they are so worked up that they often literally can't latch or feed right away. You absolutely must take a moment, just a minute or two, to gently soothe them. Holding them, rocking them, we're doing some skin-to-skin contact helps regulate their nervous systems so they can actually calm down enough to eat. Section 4, knowing when baby is full. This is all about recognizing that amazing relief and relaxation that comes when their needs are met. I absolutely love this comparison because it shows just how physically expressive babies are. Notice the sheer physical difference here. A hungry baby holds so much tension. We saw that arched back and those tightly closed fists. But a full baby, they completely relax their hands and their whole body. The tension just melts away. These are your clear, undeniable indicators that the meal is over. They'll drop the tension, they'll stop sucking, or they'll simply release the nipple entirely. As we just saw, they might turn their head away, and often, the ultimate sign of success, they'll just fall asleep or look completely and utterly content. When you spot these signs, you can confidently call the feeding a wrap. And finally, Section 5, hunger versus other needs. Because let's be real, even with the absolute best observation, things don't always go perfectly by the book. We have to ask ourselves, is it always hunger? It's incredibly common, especially for new parents, to misinterpret every single tear as a demand for milk. But remember, a baby's cry is their one and only tool for communicating pretty much everything. Babies will use crying to communicate a whole host of other things. They might just need a diaper change, or maybe they're overtired. Often, they literally just want the comfort of being held by you. They could be physically uncomfortable, maybe too hot or too cold. A super common culprit is having painful gas or needing to burp after a meal. Or, they might just be totally overstimulated by the room. So if you've just fed them or you didn't see any of those early green light cues, run through this checklist before automatically assuming they need more milk. So here is the absolute biggest takeaway from today's explainer. Crying is generally considered a late sign of hunger. If you remember nothing else, let it be this. If we just sit back and wait for the tears to start rolling, we've totally missed that ideal window for a stress-free feeding. We force the baby to sound their loudest possible alarm just to get their basic needs met. By tuning into your baby's unique timeline, the lip smacking, the rooting, those little fists coming up to the mouth, you intercept the escalation entirely. It makes feeding a beautifully calm experience for both of you and saves so much stress. So, I'll leave you with this thought. The next time your baby fusses, are you reacting to a blaring alarm, or are you answering a question they gently asked 5 minutes ago? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time.